Joining us tonight, former South Carolina governor, U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, and presidential candidate Nikki Haley. She's also the host of Nikki Haley Live on Sirius XM. Governor, thanks for being here.
Oh, great to be with you, Bret.
You know, just down the road is this event on the Ellipse, and as we look live there, Vice President Harris is going to make a pitch to the voters there and around the country. She is, according to excerpts, going to say that former President Trump is a threat to democracy. He's dangerous and unhinged. She's likely going to quote from former Chief of Staff General Kelly and his former commander and chairman of the Joint Chiefs, calling him a fascist. What do you say in response to that? You've endorsed the former president. How do you respond to this?
I find it interesting that, she's decided to go back to that January 6th moment. A lot of Americans have decided where they are on January 6th. I personally have said it was a terrible day. We should never revisit it again. But while she wants to go back to January 6th, what she doesn't want to visit is what's happened since January 6th, because we've had 4 years of record inflation. We've had unconscionable amounts of illegal immigrants, 500,000 criminal illegals alone coming across that border. You look at the fact that Afghanistan fell under their watch, unleashing this world war that we're all now having to deal with. And that's the 4 years she doesn't want to talk about. So the fact that she goes back to January 6th, people know how they feel about January 6th. What they're living right now and what they're deciding on is whether they want another 4 years like the 4 years they just lived.
So this is a very close race in all of those battleground states. For you, the choice is clear?
It is clear. I mean, look, it's like what I said at the Republican National Convention. You don't have to agree with Trump 100% of the time to vote for him. And so for me, we have the choice. The choice is given. It's either Donald Trump or it's Kamala Harris. And for my family, what I'm looking at is the fact that my daughter says she can't afford groceries. And I look at an economy that's been tough for all of us. I look at my son who's worried about paying rent. I look at my husband who's a combat veteran who I worry about any world wars that are going to happen. All of these things have put us in a much more challenging position. With Donald Trump, we know what we're going to get. We lived the economy under Donald Trump. We know how strong he was on the border. We know how energy dominant we were. And then we also know what our national security looked like. And so I don't agree with Trump 100% of the time, but I don't agree with Kamala Harris on anything.
The Harris campaign is utilizing some Republicans who've come to support her, including former Congresswoman Liz Cheney. Clearly, a lot of analysts think they're going after voters who supported you in the primary. The Associated Press says, as Democrats court Haley supporters, the former UN ambassador is still waiting to hear from Trump. When was the last time you talked to the former president?
Last time I talked to him was back in June.
So are you surprised that you haven't been deployed out to campaign, or have you volunteered to go out and campaign for him directly?
I mean, they're very aware that we're on standby. They know that we would be there to help. I've helped with some fundraising letters and text messages and those types of things. So we've done that. But look, we're on the same team. It is their campaign's decision on what he needs in these last final days. It does not bother me at all. I think they need to do what they need to do to get across the finish line. I just think that they need to focus primarily on who it is they're talking to. You've got Americans who are absolutely going to vote for Trump. You've got Americans who are absolutely not going to vote for Trump. And then you've got a percentage in the middle who like Trump policies but don't like his style. That is what they need to focus on. So when you look at these things, it has got to be a story of addition. This is not a time to have anyone criticize Puerto Rico or Latinos. This is not a time for them to get overly masculine with this bromance thing that they've got going. 53% of the electorate are women. Women will vote. They care about how they're being talked to, and they care about the issues. They need to remember that. This is a time of discipline, and this is a time of addition.
You mentioned the Madison Square Garden event. The former president addressed that today. Take a listen.
Madison Square Garden, the love in that room. Somebody said there was a comedian that joked about Puerto Rico or something, and I have no idea who it was. Never saw him, never heard of him, and don't want to hear of him.
You know how many Puerto Rican voters there are in Pennsylvania? 273,000. This is going to cost him votes, and a substantial Puerto Rican vote, also in Michigan.
Do you think that moves the needle?
I think it's harmful. I mean, look, There's no reason to have a comedian at an election campaign event that had so much energy and so many good issues. Why have a comedian that separates people? This isn't about people being sensitive. I mean, Puerto Ricans, that's personal for them. They take that personally. So they were right to denounce the comedian. They need to go and tell Puerto Ricans how much, they do value them. They need to tell Latinos that, but they also need to look at how they're talking about women. I mean, this bromance and this masculinity stuff, I mean, it borders on edgy to the point that it's going to make women uncomfortable. You've got affiliated PACs that are doing commercials about calling Kamala the C word, or you had speakers at Madison Square Gardens, referring to her and her pimps. That is not the way to win women. That is not the way to win people who are concerned about Trump style. This is a time to talk about the economy. This is the time to talk about immigration. This is the time to talk about national security. And this is the time to talk about Kamala Harris. Let's be clear. The one choice she had, Bret, she didn't choose the moderate Democrat and Josh Shapiro. She didn't choose someone who was pro-Israel and pro-fracking like Josh Shapiro. She chose a very liberal vice presidential candidate like Tim Walz, who literally raised taxes when he had an $18 billion surplus in his state. She chose someone who had government got in the way between parents and their kids on transgender issues. This is a guy who said socialism was neighborly. And let's not forget, what I don't think is talked about enough, and Donald Trump and his team need to talk about it constantly, Kamala Harris has made it very clear she wants to pack the court. She wants to get rid of the filibuster in the name of the Green New Deal, in the name of Roe v. Wade, in the name of making D.C. and Puerto Rico a state. That's what we need to be talking about. That's what the American people need to hear. And the price gouging that she wants to do, think back to COVID and toilet paper, because that's what Kamala Harris wants to do with her price gouging forms. That's how you take on Kamala Harris.
Obviously, the former president has a lot of women who are speaking out on the trail on his behalf, supporting him. But there's a lot of folks who were supporting you, who look to you as a voice that may be very effective. If you look back at The Hill, they looked back at April, it says Haley attracts more than 150,000 votes in Pennsylvania GOP primary weeks after dropping bid. 150,000 votes. Now, of those, many of them may go towards the former president automatically, but many of them may be undecided or not getting out. Why not just pick up and go to Pennsylvania and campaign for the former president? I know you're going there for the Senate candidate.
Look, as a candidate, I know the importance of not having people go do things on their own. And so, look, there's no bad blood between me and the president. We want Donald Trump to win. I respect his campaign and what they need. If they need something, they will call and ask me. I'm a team player. I'm going to make sure that we do that. But tomorrow I'll be campaigning for Dave McCormick in the Senate. We know the importance of Pennsylvania. We know that that's a state that means a lot, not just in the Senate, but to the presidential. And we'll be talking to all of those Pennsylvanians that did support me and say, look, Dave McCormick is the person that could really seal the deal for us. He's a veteran. He's a business guy. He believes in term limits, and we need to see him win. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be helpful in every way that I can to move the needle forward. And that's the goal that we're going to do. But, Trump has the right to do what he wants to do. I'm going to be supportive in any way that I need to be and in any way that they wish me to be.
And lastly, very quickly, because tonight we're going to hear a lot about it, you have no doubts that this president is not a threat to democracy, is not dangerous, is not unhinged, that they will hear tonight.
Look, you don't have to agree with his style. His style and his wording isn't always the best, but his policies. I am choosing policy over personality. That's what I think we have to do to move America forward. And when it comes to policies, living our life from an economy, having immigration under control, being energy dominant, getting national security again, those things affect every American family. And we need to be voting on policy, not personality.
Governor Haley, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bret.